You wrote a novel. You took a page out of your dad's book. You wrote a novel called Atlas Hugged, which is obviously a takeoff on Ayn Rand's novel Atlas Shrugged, and Ayn Rand was the apostle of selfishness. You know, this was her novel sort of spelling out, making the case for selfishness, and she was a huge advocate of capitalism as sort of the foundation of moral virtue. Why did you want to go after Ayn Rand?
So I think so the editor of Nautilus is here, I think. Yeah. And I don't know if it was you who titled my Nautilus article, "I have come to destroy Ayn Rand," or something like something. I've come to bury Ayn Rand, yes. Well, it actually wasn't my idea. I was starting to get into economics from an evolutionary perspective now 15 years ago, and I'd organized a workshop. And at that workshop, somebody else said, well, you know, Ayn Rand did such a great job championing these ideas through fiction. Shouldn't somebody be doing the same for these new ideas? And in a flash, the title, Atlas Hugged, flew into my mind, and the elements of the plot line became clear that my book would be about the grandson of John Galt, the protagonist of Atlas Hugged, and his father would have been some public media figure like Rush Limbaugh, and that this would be a titanic battle between father and son. And it was so appealing. You know, we call ourselves storytelling animals, and of course we all know we love listening to stories. But to create a story at length, I discovered, was just the most engrossing thing ever. And by the time I was done, there were 60 characters in my novel. It was just like it wasn't even my choice to write it. And it took 7 years. And in that novel, a worldwide transformation takes place in 100 days. And so that's not going to happen, but much else. And no, this also, it's so interesting that to such an extent, because we do construct our own social environments, we can and do imagine our worlds, first imagine our worlds, and then turn them into a reality. And because my novel co-evolved with my work on economics, all the time I'm borrowing phrases from my novel, and actually when I'm in a real world setting. And so take your pick. You can the fictional form or the non-fictional form. But
So I want to come back in a moment to sort of the real world implications of what you're talking about, but just to follow up on Ayn Rand. So she's been dead for decades, but there still is an Ayn Rand Institute. Did they read your novel?
Yeah, they did. They hated it, as you might assume. No, Ayn Rand's influence is still great, and this tradition that my father critiqued 70 years ago, and Atlas Shrugged appeared just within a few years of The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, is still with us, is still dominating the economic landscape. We call it neoclassical economics, and just this morning, literally a few hours ago, I was on a 3-hour online economics conference sponsored by the UN, in which this was all the topic. And what they were saying was, you know, we're still dominated by the neo-classical paradigm. And what we need, they said, is a new source code. A new source code. And I think one of the points that this illustrates, which is a little bit subtle, but I don't feel that it should be subtle, that and I think it was alluded to in your introduction, that at some level, in order to change the way we act, we must change the way we think on the inside.